Imagine a single quiet decision inside Buckingham Palace, redrawing the future of the monarchy. King Charles elevating Prince Louis, while opportunities for one of Camilla's own grandsons are slowly restricted. No official decree has confirmed this. But here's what is already real. Camilla's biological grandchildren hold no royal titles, no succession rights, no guaranteed place inside the institution she now represents as queen. If Charles were ever forced to choose between the Wales bloodline and Camilla's family, what would that reveal about who truly shapes the future of the crown? To establish the boundary of documented facts, no official decree has confirmed any promotion for Prince Louis. Nor is there any verified palace conflict, private reaction, or ban targeting Queen Camilla's family. In constitutional terms, senior royal rank is an imprecise media shorthand rather than a single codified category. Yet, within the context of documented titles, succession principles, and family relationships, one possible scenario reveals the fragile balance of courtly power. Imagine if the king chose to grant Prince Louis a larger public portfolio or ceremonial status in the future. Such a choice could make the Wales branch appear overwhelmingly influential, leaving Camilla's biological family on the periphery of royal life. For Camilla, the emotional stake lies in the potential erosion of her family's standing within the social hierarchy of the court. Would raising the young prince simply represent a practical move to prepare the crown's next generation for their duties? Or would it signal a subtle, deeply personal family preference, quietly drawing a line between the sovereign's blood heirs and his wife's descendants? Prince Louis entered the world on April 23, 2018, immediately stepping into a rigid century-old constitutional framework. Officially styled as His Royal Highness Prince Louis of Wales, a designation updated in September 2022 when his father became the Prince of Wales, the young prince currently sits fourth in the line of succession, positioned directly behind Prince William, Prince George, and Princess Charlotte. This standing is not a personal gift or a recent decree from King Charles. It is the automatic result of his birthright under the 1917 Letters Patent and the Succession to the Crown Act 2013, which locked his place in the direct line of inheritance. Yet, under the polished surface of official biographies, a massive divide exists between holding a title and holding power. In the legal records, Prince Louis has no independent household, no personal patronage, and no substantive dukedom or peerage of his own. He is a prince by birth, but he is not a working royal. While the public enjoys his appearances at major events, like the 2026 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, his daily life remains that of a schoolchild, carefully shielded from the burdens of the state. This is the documented reality, but it raises a provocative question. What if the king chose to disrupt this quiet baseline? A sudden, future elevation, granting the young prince a dedicated public portfolio or early ceremonial duties, would represent a significant departure from his current standing. For Camilla, whose biological children and grandchildren possess no titles and zero succession rights under the law, such a move would cast a long shadow. It would visually and legally cement the absolute primacy of the Windsor bloodline, leaving her own family further sidelined in the public eye. Camilla's path to the throne followed a personal chronology, unfolding far from any constitutional shortcut. Born on July 17, 1947, she married Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973, raising two children, Tom and Laura. Decades later, on April 9, 2005, her marriage to Charles reshaped her destiny, leading to her transition to Queen Consort on September 8, 2022. Through this union, she became a step-grandmother to Prince Louis. Yet, the legal boundaries of the crown remain absolute. While she shares the king's life and the palace spotlight, her biological children and grandchildren possess no HRH styles, no princely titles, and no place in the line of succession. Under the 1917 letters patent, they are private citizens, completely excluded from official duties. This creates a sharp, invisible divide within the palace walls. On one side sits the biological family she loves. On the other, the dynastic line she married into. Imagine a scenario where Charles openly prioritizes the future of the bloodline, placing Prince Louis into a major public role. It would expose the stark reality of Camilla's position. Near the throne, but constitutionally isolated. How would a queen manage a court where her own flesh and blood are merely spectators, while her step-grandson represents the permanent future of the crown? Imagine a scenario where this constitutional division begins to shape daily life at court. In this hypothetical scenario, King Charles decides to fast-track Prince Louis into early ceremonial duties, preparing the young prince for a lifetime of public service. At the exact same time, one of Camilla's grandsons quietly receives fewer invitations to key family gatherings or private palace events. This would not require a dramatic confrontation behind closed doors, nor would it stem from an active personal feud. Instead, the crown would simply be following its own internal logic, prioritizing the direct dynastic line above all else. From the king's perspective, such a decision represents a pragmatic investment in the long-term survival of the monarchy, reinforcing the direct line of succession. But for Camilla, the view from the inside could be far more isolating. She might read this shift as a quiet narrowing of space for her biological family, a visual reminder that her loved ones are ultimately temporary guests in a house built only for blood heirs. This raises a fundamental question about the true cost of duty. If these choices were made, would it mean the king is actively choosing against his wife's family? Or is he merely executing the cold, impersonal demands of the monarchy he is sworn to protect? On June 8, 2019, a one-year-old Prince Louis made his debut on the Buckingham Palace balcony during Trooping the Colour, instantly capturing public fascination. 3 years later, during the 2022 Platinum Jubilee, his animated, unscripted reactions went viral, cementing a raw, organic connection with the public that formal royal appointments can never manufacture. This gradual introduction continued through family occasions, from the Easter service in April 2026 to his appearance at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games in August. Although his parents recently declined a minor honorary patronage for him, stating he is not yet a working royal, his growing visibility serves a powerful symbolic purpose. In a modern monarchy operating with a depleted roster of working representatives, the crown naturally relies on direct line heirs to maintain public relevance. But for Camilla, this slow-building focus on the young prince carries a heavier weight. What if this carefully managed public exposure is more than just childhood preparation? In this hypothetical scenario, the constant spotlight on the Wales children could act as a silent declaration of priority, quietly framing the sovereign's bloodline as the ultimate future of the house. For Camilla's own grandchildren, who remain entirely invisible in the state pageantry, the message is clear. It prompts a lingering question. Does this preparation itself signal who truly belongs at the heart of the new reign? In this hypothetical scenario, Queen Camilla would stand at a complex personal and constitutional crossroads. As both a devoted wife to the sovereign and a protective grandmother to her own biological grandchildren, any shift in the family dynamics would test the limits of her influence. If Prince Louis were elevated, Royal watchers might imagine three very different paths for her. She could choose quiet acceptance, viewing the young prince's preparation as a necessary institutional duty. Alternatively, she might focus on protecting her grandchildren's dignity, keeping Tom and Laura's children safely shielded within the privacy of civilian life. A third path might involve supporting Charles publicly, championing his vision for a streamlined crown, while privately recognizing the unequal positions their families occupy. The true weight of this dilemma comes from a quiet realization. Personal closeness to the sovereign, no matter how genuine, cannot determine formal opportunity. For Camilla, the challenge is balancing private affection with the demands of an ancient institution. Does the true test of this family divide lie in public titles, or does it exist in the physical boundaries of the court itself? The real boundary may be determined by who is granted daily entry behind closed palace doors. To test the claim of restricted palace access, we must examine what a limitation actually looks like in practice. A restriction could manifest as a quiet reduction in family invitations, fewer public opportunities, or scaled-back ceremonial roles. Yet, an absence from any single event fails to prove a ban. Within the complex machinery of the court, a lower profile is frequently explained by routine security protocols, household logistics, age, or simple family privacy. The standard of proof for any official change of status is high, requiring an identifiable royal warrant, a formal palace communique, or a reliable official record. No such document exists. In fact, the historical record shows the opposite. On May 6, 2023, Camilla's biological grandsons, Gus Lopes, Louis Lopes, and Freddie Parker Bowles, served prominently as pages of honor at the coronation. This highly visible role proves that their lack of royal titles and succession rights does not equal exclusion. Ultimately, operational decisions about who stands on a balcony or attends a state dinner remain entirely separate from legal titles or the statutory line of succession. But in the court of public opinion, perception is everything. If the public perceives a pattern of visibly unequal access, they will draw their own conclusions, even in the absolute absence of a formal decree. The court operates on two distinct systems of influence. First is the direct dynastic pathway, represented by the Prince of Wales and his children. As the bloodline heirs, their standing is defined by centuries of succession law, giving them a permanent constitutional relevance that exists entirely apart from personal favour. Opposite this sits the relational pathway of Queen Camilla's family, whose connection to the throne exists solely through marriage. This structural division reveals a clear reality within the palace. Personal closeness to the sovereign does not grant a place in the line of succession, just as holding a spot in that line does not automatically guarantee a public working role. In this light, the Wales family is positioned to remain the public face of the next generation, fulfilling deep-seated public expectations of continuity. Meanwhile, Camilla's biological relatives may remain highly valued in private, while remaining absent from formal crown activity. If commentators view this contrast as a sidelining of Camilla's family, royal scholars caution that such an interpretation mistakes institutional rules for personal hostility. The sovereign's challenge lies in managing these parallel systems. A hypothetical balance requires Charles to respect the strict limits of royal discretion while preserving family harmony. It is a quiet coexistence of bloodline and marriage, where each branch occupies its own sphere of power. Yet, if a shift in this unspoken balance were to occur, it raises a significant question. What formal, legal action would the king have to take to truly alter the division of influence between his blood heirs and his wife's family? To turn a hypothetical preference into a binding royal reality, the Crown must work through a rigid hierarchy of legal and constitutional instruments. If King Charles decided to assign Prince Louis a formal public role, it would begin with operational decrees. The King would assign specific patronages and duties, establishing a dedicated household with published responsibilities. These activities would then appear systematically in the court circular, creating an official public paper trail of the young prince's service. However, granting a new title or style requires a higher level of legal authority. The sovereign would have to issue letters patent under the Great Seal of the Realm, a formal prerogative instrument published in the Royal Gazette. This mechanism mirrors history, from George V's 1917 letters, patent restricting the royal style, to Queen Elizabeth II's 2012 amendment that secured the HRH status for all of Prince William's children, including Louis. Yet, while the King can adjust ceremonial precedents through a royal warrant or an order in council, precedence is entirely distinct from inheritance. Changing who sits where at a state banquet does not alter who inherits the throne. To actually modify the line of succession, either to raise Louis's position or legally exclude anyone connected to Camilla, the Crown is entirely powerless on its own. Such a change demands a statutory process. It would require the UK Parliament to pass new legislation, amending the Succession to the Crown Act 2013, a complex constitutional process that would also require the individual consent of all 15 Commonwealth realms. In contrast, controlling physical presence at court remains a purely operational decision. Restricting access to palace grounds or security clearances requires no parliamentary act. These are managed privately through internal household and security procedures. Ultimately, a larger public profile for Prince Louis could be made highly visible without ever rewriting succession law or legally banning Camilla's family. A formal palace announcement of a new role for Louis would carry minimal legal weight, yet its symbolic impact would be absolute. For Camilla, it would stand as a public declaration of family preference, a clear signal of where the permanent power of the house truly resides. The unresolved battle for prominence within the royal household comes down to a struggle over legacy. Queen Camilla faces a quiet shift in personal influence rather than any sudden loss of her formal titles. In this delicate court environment, any future elevation of Prince Louis serves as a clear signal of institutional preparation, readying the next generation of blood heirs for public service. Yet, this leaves the king with an agonizing, unresolved choice. He must weigh the demands of direct succession and formal public service against his personal family priorities, balancing the long-term survival of the monarchy against the peace of his own home. If Charles ever had to choose between protecting the future of the crown and protecting the interests of his own family, whose side would ultimately win? Today, the crown's deepest battlefield lies in the silent choices of a husband and king. As Charles balances his ancient duty to his bloodline against the peace of his own home, Camilla's family faces a delicate shift in the shadows of the throne. If the king must ultimately choose between the monarchy's survival and his wife's legacy, who wins? Join the conversation below.